Hi, this is Mr. Sitta. I'm going to go over Chapter 9 review packet. This is going to be cations, anions, and predicting charges. Pretty much nomenclature. Okay. I've already gone over this, but I figured I'd post it so you can review it because I want to give you an assessment that's going to be multiple choice and similar to this. Okay, here we go. Metals tend to lose electrons and nonmetals tend to gain. The answer is C. All these are kind of on redox and oxidations and reductions. Anions tend to have a negative charge. Cations tend to have positive charge. So D, answer to 2 is negative and positive. Anions tend to be nonmetals. Nonmetals tend to gain electrons and tend to become negative. Cations tend to be your metals, which lose electrons and end up being positive. So the answer is D. Which species before is nitride? Nitrogen, and the ide means it's by itself, and it would have a -3 charge, and that would follow the normal pattern. When a metal and a nonmetal react, the metal tends to lose electrons, and the nonmetal tends to, we'll say nonmetal, gain. Whenever I'm doing multiple choice, I'd rather think of it as open-ended than trying to even guess the choices. Sodium is an alkali metal. It's in the first row, so that has a +1 charge. Has 1 electron, an S1, and it tends to lose that S1 electron. It has a very low Z effective. There's not a lot of nuclear pull. Okay. Aluminums tend to form with a charge of +3. You should know all these from your periodic trends. Calcium forms a charge of +2. Bromine forms an ion with a charge of -1, and when it forms that, its name becomes bromide. When you see bromine, that would just be the Br. Okay, if I was talking about it as a molecule, it would form 2s, Br2, but that forms bromide with a -1. Oxygen becomes oxide and forms with the charge of -2. And you have to know that the ide means that you are negative and you're by yourself. Okay. The suffix "ide" means that you're monatomic. That means one atom. Okay, and you're primary and you are negative. Okay. The charge on what ion is -3? That would be nitrogen, nitride. Okay. Alkali earth metals are group 2. They always form with the charge of +2. When you see Fe with the +3 charge, it means that it's lost 3 electrons. When the hydrogen combines with a metal, so if I had like calcium with hydrogen, the calcium is going to be +2. The hydrogen is going to be a -1, and that's why it's not. Hydrogen's not considered to be a nonmetal. I always consider it to be a metalloid. So it can act as a metal or a nonmetal, but the formula would be CH2, and the charge of hydride, and this would be forming H-1 hydride. Only because it's with a metal. Every other time, hydrogen will be a positive. Okay. Which would you expect to be ionic? Calcium is a metal. Non-metal, 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 non-metal. The only one with the metal is ionic. Ionic compounds, remember, are metal and a non-metal. I'll post these on the site also written. Which would form an ionic compound? Which pair of elements would most likely form an ion compound with each other? Barium's a metal, chlorine's a non-metal, so the answer is barium chloride. Calcium, sodium are both metals, non-metals, non-metals, and non-metals. So you need a metal and a non-metal. Same thing. Equals ionic. Which of those following true concerning the simplest unit of MgCl2? Well, you have one magnesium ion with the +2, and you have two negative ions. And so the most true is D. You have one positive ion plus two negative ions. Okay, if I get strontium together with nitrogen, it would make strontium nitride. Strontium's an alkali earth metal, so it's a +2. Nitrogen in group 15 is a -3. So crisscross, you get 3 to 2 ratio. 3 to 2 is SR3N2. And that's how you should do that. Okay. Predict the form that you would get when you get magnesium fluorine. It would be magnesium fluoride. +2, fluoride's -1, so it's a 1 to 2 ratio. So it's MgF2. If I did this problem, this is the work that I would show. Okay. Element X. You have a compound that forms with Al and X, and they're in a 1-to-1 ratio. Well, we know aluminum's a +3, so the X must be a -3. And the only thing here that forms a -3 is nitrogen forms nitride. Sulfur would form a -2, fluoride's a -1, fluoride, bromide's a -1, and nitrogen's a -3, and oxygen be a -2, so that's nitride. The correct formula for K2S, it's ionic potassium sulfide by itself. There's no need to say di or bi. Ionic compounds don't need prefixes. They form in fixed ratios. Potassium sulfide is always a 2-to-1 ratio, never different. This is ionic, a metal, so it'd be aluminum oxide A. The correct name for CaH2, calcium, and H is on the right, so calcium is a +2, H is a -1, so E, calcium hydride. It's also ionic. If I was to name MnCl3, I have to find the charge of the manganese. Chloride's a -1, there's 3 of them, so that's a total of -3. So the manganese must be a +3 because all compounds are 0. And I could also look at reversing the crisscross, and the charge ends up being +3. The name of it would be magnesium Roman numeral 3 chloride. The charge on the iron in this, again, reverse the crisscross. Oxygen's a -2, so iron's a +3, will be +3. Chromium and chloride form a compound which is CrCl3. Name it, it would be chromium chloride. Now I have to find the charge of the chromium. So chloride's a -1, so chromium's a 3. And it would be B. The correct formula for iron 3 bromide. The 3 refers to iron having a +3 charge. Bromide's a -1. You get a 1 to 3 ratio. So it would be Fe1, Br3. Okay, I'm going to finish this on a second video.